Welcome to Cultivate, a Veritas Academy podcast, where we explore truth, beauty, and goodness through meaningful conversation. We invite you to join us in discussions meant to edify your mind, encourage your heart, and equip your family to live abundantly in Christ.
Welcome back to Cultivate. I'm Ty Fisher, the head of school here at Veritas Academy and your host, and I have two alumni with me today. I have Clay Martin. Hey, Clay.
How's it going?
That's good. And Caleb Ploutz.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Fisher?
Doing well, doing well. You're probably going to have to shift and call me Ty at some point. I know it's challenging for some people, but yeah.
I felt a shiver just go down my spine.
Okay, hey, do whatever you think is best. So we're here today, and we're going to explore the topic of how a classical Christian education prepared these two young men for the workforce. Now, we're going to dig into that because there's a lot to talk about. But first, I want you just to get to know these two young men. So, Clay, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and your post-high school decision to go into your career instead of taking a traditional college track?
Sure. So, my name's Clay Martin. I would have graduated in 2018. Upon graduating, I was really unsure of what direction I wanted to go in. I had a couple different ideas, but nothing really stood out. So I kind of narrowed it down. I ended up going to work for a company with the intention of saving up money to go to school, with the ultimate intention of going to school and not having any debt. Continued to work at that company.
You mean people go into debt?
I know, it's crazy.
In college?
What a novel thought.
Right.
Wow.
I ended up working at this company and realizing it was a really great company and just continuing to move up.
Are you still in that company?
I am. I'll hit 5 years in August at this company. So I started there the fall after I graduated.
So what's your job?
So currently I'm in business development, which is a very broad term that can mean a lot of things. Specifically what it means for me is I do a lot of product training, and I've been in a technical specialist role for a couple years now. At one point, that looked like inside sales. At another point, that looked
When you say inside sales, what do you mean by that?
That meant writing orders, customer service.
Okay.
Fielding a lot of calls, really.
Okay.
So we work in manufacturing. We're a manufacturer of outdoor living products. So it was a lot of talking to contractors on job sites, helping them problem solve, a lot of that kind of thing.
Okay. Enjoying your work?
I am. It's very fulfilling. It's a great company. I have a great team that I work with.
Yeah. Anything else going on in your life?
Not a whole lot. I just moved recently. I'm newly engaged, looking to get married soon.
Okay, so that's what I was like poking toward there,
Gotcha.
Clay. Like that is a big thing going on in your life, right?
Yeah, I guess it is.
I was gonna say, Clay.
You guess?
I was gonna say, I've seen your Instagram, dude. I know there was something big going on.
Yeah.
I live a pretty simple life. I have a good work-life balance. I've got a small group of friends that I see regularly, and yeah, I think I live a pretty good life.
Good.
I'm pretty content where I'm at.
Are you? I've run into you over at Wheatland Presbyterian Church. Are you a member over there?
I used to be. I haven't been going quite as regularly to Wheatland.
Okay.
But if I were to call a church home, that would probably be it.
Okay. So yeah, you were reading scripture, I think, one week when I was
really?
there. Yeah. You did a pretty good job.
Oh, thank you.
And Caleb, same question. Tell us about what happened after you graduated from Veritas. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I had maybe almost the reverse of how you had, Clay, where when I graduated, I had plans to attend Millersville, and I was enrolled and everything, and I actually went to Millersville for a few weeks.
And for those of you who don't know, Millersville it might be the largest college in Lancaster County, I would think.
Yeah.
F&M would come closest, I would think.
But it's a state school.
Yeah.
So it's in the, I don't know if it's not in the Penn State orbit, but it's a state school.
Right. Yeah. And, I planned to go there and pursue my bachelor's, but the problem was when I graduated and spent the summer, I had no clue what I wanted to pursue a bachelor's in. And over the summer, and this is more God's providence in setting things up for me, over the summer, I had worked at Landis Homes on their grounds team. So I got landscaping experience and groundskeeping experience, which was very funny for me because I used to hate working outdoors. Made a career out of it.
Okay, that's good.
Yep. But fall came, I went to Millersville for a couple weeks, and it just dawned on me, especially looking to, write that first check, that I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm spending a lot of money.
And this check has too many digits in it.
Exactly.
Right.
Way too many digits for me to not know what I'm spending it on. And I withdrew. I talked to my parents about it, and they were supportive. They just said, you need to work and save money and just figure out what you're going to do until you figure out what you want to do. And yeah, so I withdrew and immediately was able to, for a couple of weeks, step back into my role at Landis Homes and work there, but there was no full-time position. So I moved to Brethren Village and joined their grounds team. Then I went into security, realized that I liked working with people and helping people. And in that job, especially in a nursing home, if there's an emergency and they press like their life alert pendant, security responds.
Yeah, you got to go.
Yeah, yep. So security responds, we get there, and then we were on scene first before the EMTs got there. And then, EMS would show up.
So you're kind of helping them triage that situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And I found myself really liking I found my head abnormally clear in the middle of crisis, which I realized I was talking to a few other people about it, and I was like, is it normal? Like, does your head get super clear when everything kind of, goes haywire? And they were like, no, I panic. And
So you kind of found that way. How could I say it in the Marvel way? You found your superpower.
I guess I must have, but in that I bumped into the same EMT a bunch of times because they were always on dispatch for Mannheim, and he said, hey, I have a company, a private company. We do medical standby work. I like, I like you. Would you want to, maybe give us a try? So, yeah, I started working with them as like a volunteer.
So basically, God just opened a door for you.
Way opened a door. I mean, it was, especially looking back, I mean, you can really see that clear pathway of him opening the doors for me from the step off from college to Landis Homes, Brethren Village, and then where I'm currently at with that company. I was offered once I got my EMT license. So I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes,
I technically went to some form of school, and I got my EMT cert.
Did you have to write a bunch of checks to that school?
I wrote one check. It was very small in comparison to any other.
Did the company help you get the training that you needed?
They did, yeah. So
Okay.
they've been supporting me a lot, and then after working with them for close to a year, they then offered me the position of operations manager for their company. So their old op manager, she moved out to Philly, so she's running things out there, and then they needed someone to cover Lancaster. So they hired me with no management experience or anything like that. And it kind of leads into what we're here to talk about today. Yeah.
So anything else going on in your life?
I got married close to 2 years ago.
Congratulations.
So thanks.
Congrats. I don't think I've seen you since then. So
I know, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I married back in 2021. My wife and I are happily living in Lidditz, and both of us working, and have both, kind of like you said, aimed to get through whatever schooling we went through completely debt-free. And praise God, she was able to get through 4 years of nursing school completely debt-free as well.
She doing nursing now?
Yeah, she's a labor and delivery nurse at Women and Babies.
Oh,
so
that can be a really sad part of the hospital, but it's often a really happy part of the hospital.
It is, yeah. She loves it. There are crazy stressful times, and there are really wonderful and really sad times sometimes.
Okay, if you guys were to go back and if I could rewind the tape, and I'm handing you the diploma again, would you do the same thing would you make the same choices that you've made? Do you feel like you've hit a good path?
absolutely. For me personally, I think a lot of the mistakes that I made even before I graduated, but I think mistakes are ultimately the best way to learn.
Okay.
A lot of the choices I made are the reason why I'm here today doing what I do. I'm looking back, I don't think I would really change anything.
Okay. Caleb?
Yeah, I think the only thing I might have changed was not maybe pursuing college in the first place when I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Did you get that check back?
I did.
Okay.
Yep,
Well, that's good.
The last day that they would fully refund it
there you
to, again, God's providence
Yeah,
that didn't disappear. But yeah, I think I wish I had enough introspection back then to be like, listen, I don't know what I want to do. And really at the end of it all, and you may remember this, Mr. Fisher, and you may also remember this, Clay, I had a very academically gifted class that I was surrounded with, which is good. I mean, that was a great thing because it did set that metric of trying to go hard, trying to go hard with those tests and, do everything really well.
I think I can relate to that too a little bit. I was surrounded by people that I felt like I was pretty mid-tier on the level of intellectual ability.
Yeah. But then you got out into the world. Have you found the world to be different than the bubble of Veritas Academy?
Absolutely.
All I can do is muster a laugh. Yes. Yeah. And it was almost a shell shock. I think that
absolutely
especially that initial, and I think I was very fortunate. First going into Landis Homes and figuring out what's it like to work on a work crew. And thankfully there was a guy from Westminster who worked there with
Westminster Presbyterian Church, the church that you and I are members of.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, that one. So there was a guy there in his late 20s who was a member there, and I had known him all growing up, and he was full-time on that crew. So he was able to kind of shepherd me in a very good way.
That's wonderful.
And sort of gently step me off into, all right, you're stepping into the working world. I did get coined with the nickname on that work crew, Veritas. So,
did you?
Yep. They asked because they knew I had just graduated. They asked where I graduated from, and then I guess once I used a big word, and they were like, all right, Veritas.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, the bullying, the hazing that goes on those crews.
Hey, it built character.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably, I was like, man, it builds character.
Yep.
Well, usually before we have a podcast, I interact with the guests a little bit, and we had some really good interaction before this podcast, especially, I'm going to aim this question at Clay because it was really email that you sent. So, Clay, when we were interacting, I was trying to get you in here to do the podcast. Is it fair to say that you felt like some people were not as supportive of your choice not to go to college and sort of pushed you to reconsider or to go on a different path?
Ultimately, it all worked out, and there's no ill will held.
That's good.
I'll put it that way.
Thank you, Clay.
Yeah, so I would say I had the experience, and there were several other people that I knew that had similar experiences where there was really a lot of uncertainty of what direction to take.
Mm-hmm.
And it really seemed like the picture being painted was the only path forward is college. And it was very disappointing to be met with, to bring forward the, I don't know what I want to do, and it's very expensive to follow an unclear path. And I just kind of dug my heels in and said, well, I'm not going to spend $50,000.
That might not have been a good method with you, right?
Right.
That's not very convincing.
Yeah. So all that to be said, it did all work out. But to improve on that, I think it would be good to kind of build awareness on the opportunities that are out there.
Yeah.
Just to throw out a random statistic, the industry that I'm in, 40% of the people in my current industry will have retired by 2030. So there's almost a 50% number of people that will have retired in this industry.
So there's going to be a lot of jobs open.
Correct. There's also kind of a misconception of when a student says, "Yeah, I'm going to the trades." There is kind of a misconception of when somebody says they're going to the trades that they're going to be working a 10-hour day out in the sun doing backbreaking work.
Well, and they might be doing backbreaking work, and they might enjoy it.
Right, and that might be what God is calling them to.
Right.
But with that said, the trades is a very broad blanket term, and that does include quite a few white collar, for lack of a better term, jobs.
Yeah. Well, so this is what I wanted to thank you, Clay. Thank you for that. I do want to give you a little bit of a narrative, and I think it explains some of the reason why some of us probably would have reacted that way. I didn't know what I was going to do when I went to college, okay? I thought I was going to play baseball in college and went to the University of Southern Indiana for a few semesters, which I think would be akin to Millersville. It'd be like something like that. And then I transferred out to Grove City, and I discovered what I wanted to do in college. The difference, I think, that one of the most significant differences is University of Southern Indiana cost almost nothing, and Grove City cost $8,000 annually.
Man, I wish.
For tuition, room, and board in the ancient days when I went there. So if college costs $8,000, figuring something out, taking a year to figure something out might be, but they weren't asking you for 8, were they?
No, sir. No, sir. So the really, I'd kind of looked at the options, and because of my situation, I was the youngest of 4, and just the way everything panned out, financial aid was negligible for me.
Okay.
I wasn't really going to be receiving anything short of any crazy scholarships I could try to apply for or grants I could try to apply for, and just nothing was really panning out. So I was looking at the price tag, fully expecting that I will be paying that price tag.
Yeah.
And the price tags I was receiving were not something that, as an 18-year-old, there were a lot of zeros. My parents were very big on the fact that they felt that primary education was the big thing, and it's no secret Veritas is not the most affordable school to attend.
Okay.
That's because it's a quality education, and they felt that paying for that quality education K through 12 as much as they could was a more sound investment than paying for their children's college. So from a very early age, I knew if college was something I wanted to do, I would be funding
It's on
it
your
out
own
of pocket.
dime.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how would you both react to this statement that Veritas should prepare a student to be ready for college or career, but the student has to discern what God's calling him or her to do?
I would strongly, I would say I definitely agree with that statement. The only slight maybe asterisk on the student needs to find what God is calling them to. Absolutely. The more of those opportunities or, blanket term trades that they are exposed to, the more they may realize, oh, this is something that I want to do. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not necessarily saying, sure, yeah, you could take a whole class of juniors and tell them to go weed the garden beds and see if they love it, but that doesn't seem like a great litmus test.
Yeah.
But Ty's just hearing free landscaping. Those are the words that he's hearing.
No, what we should do is send the juniors out to alumni houses to weed the.
Perfect.
There we go.
Now I'm on track.
Okay.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. So I just think that some good exposure to more of the, again, blanket term trades, however that may be logistically feasible. I know that now there are a ton of changes at Veritas that I may not even be aware of. For one, I'm sitting in a room that definitely was not ours when we were here. I mean, the floors are all one color, which is a huge.
John Hayward hates that. He wants the tiles back.
Oh no. And there's central AC, which I can't believe.
That is wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah,
we've gone soft.
I know. The students today, man, they won't know what it was like back in our day.
We're going to have to take them out to do the weeding just so they can.
Yeah,
so they can know what life.
How are you instilling grit in your students when they don't have to sweat it out in some of those rooms?
I think the biggest thing Veritas prepared me for in my workforce was Dale Siegenthaler never turning on a fan in his classroom and me sweating so hard. He prepped me to be working outside 24/7.
That's hilarious, and I'm sure that Mr. Siegenthaler will enjoy hearing that. So, and you might not have known the answer to this. Your reflection on this question now is probably worth more than it would have been right as you were graduating from Veritas. Do you think that had you have had a path that you saw that would take you in the direction of college, do you think that you were prepared to step into that path? Like, was your education adequate for you to be working at a college?
Yes. And to your earlier question, I would agree. It really comes down to the discernment.
Mm-hmm.
Had I wanted to go down that path, I do feel like I would have been prepared well for that. I mean, that was really what it was.
Just wasn't the right path for you.
It just wasn't the right path for me. And it is worth it to point out that there are some students, I'm going to bring up someone specific, A.J. Martin,
Yeah.
knew from a very early age exactly what he wanted to do, and there was a very clear path to take. There was step 1, step 2, step 3, etc. And
AJ's a battle commander in the Air Force now. So there's only one Air Force.
Right, exactly. And that applies to students that may want to have highly specific careers, like I'm thinking doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Yeah.
Some of those careers have very specific paths. But in the workforce in America today, there's a lot of paths. There's
Sure.
literally countless paths. You can be doing a lot of different jobs, and what I was seeing 5 years ago, and even more so now, is in a lot of those less specified careers, the value of a degree has gone down.
Sure.
The recruiting and HR departments are not requiring a written college education as much as they might have been years past.
Yeah. So in the two positions that you fill now, how do you think the education that you received here at Veritas, how is it serving you in those positions?
For me, I definitely think it came down to, and this wasn't something I realized until several years in, but being able to string together a basic grammatical sentence in both writing and speaking is, and I
It's
wish,
shocking how rare the ability is.
I wish that I was sitting here saying that
guys, you're making me
totally,
sad.
totally tongue in cheek, but really a big thing that has gotten me noticed in my jobs is being able to spell correctly and being able to write respectfully in emails and written and speaking communication.
And
That's music to my ears.
I can agree with that wholeheartedly, and if I can add on to that, not just speaking clearly, but thinking clearly and being able to communicate your thoughts. I think if I were to give a sales pitch for Veritas, that would be it. I mean, they teach you to communicate, and they teach you to think, and they teach you to communicate what you're thinking.
Well, so we're running into more of these stories about, and listen, I'm not rooting for anyone to get a bad education, but alumni come back to talk with me, or kids go out to a summer job and come back. And I told a story on one of the episodes about Veritas students have a massive advantage because they can do simple math in their heads, which I thought everyone could do simple math in their heads. And that is not what's happening out there. Is that, I mean, you guys run into that as well?
Oh, yeah.
Not so much the math side. For me, it's really been more the communication side, but I can see how that would happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
Now, Caleb, you asked, we were talking, you were here a couple minutes before Clay arrived, and help me understand what you mean by how did it benefit you in the social aspect? How did the education you received here at Veritas benefit what you meant by the social aspect?
So I will preface this with, I am not sitting here saying that Veritas is going to turn every introvert into an extrovert or make them fantastic at speaking to everyone.
You speak the truth there, Caleb.
More what I mean is sort of what Clay started to touch on, which is being able to speak your thoughts and order them logically. Mm-hmm. And some of what we were talking about before was people bring up, I mean, no matter what the topic is, someone will not like what you say. No matter what you say, how you say it, what the topic is, someone will disagree with you. The difference between a fulfilling, even conversation, it doesn't even have to be an argument, and ridiculousness is the fact that hopefully someone can think clearly in that conversation.
Yeah.
And I would say Veritas definitely helped prepare me for that, of ordering, okay, is what I'm saying founded in truth? Is it founded in facts? Is this logical? Does this make sense? Or is what I'm saying completely, subjective and, just whatever my own opinions are?
Is it the truth or is it my truth?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that was kind of a big thing that I learned very quickly, that again was almost that sort of culture shock, was, there aren't just the things that maybe we grew up taking for granted. not everybody holds those same things, or even knows them in the first place.
You want to weigh in on that, Clay?
If I could add to the social side of things too, I think one of the places that Veritas really shines is the size and the overall scope of class sizes and the groups that people interact in. They're very small groups. The smaller the group, the smaller the crowd, the harder it is to blend in.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a class of 500 people, you're 1 out of 500. If you have a class of 15 people, you're 1 out of 15. So you can't quite blend in and disappear quite as easily, and it forces you to really come out of your shell. I agree, Veritas doesn't make every introvert an extrovert, but it does force engagement, and it forces you to kind of come out of your shell and present yourself and really kind of show who you are and engage,
It's interesting, guys. One of the meetings I had yesterday, we were talking about how to preserve that, because we're looking at, it's likely preschool through 12th grade. We're coming up to the 2023-2024 school year. This podcast will probably air during that year, but we're looking at like 400 as the number of students. So it's a lot bigger than,
which is double.
For context, what would it have been? Would it have been when we graduated?
Upper 100s to lower 200s, I think.
I was going to say, I think it's doubled since we've been here.
Yeah. Wow. So, but what we're having to do is we're having to take classes, and we want to get them in a discussion area with like 15 students. So we're having to, like, for instance, 10th graders will be broken into 2 classes for their discussion part of Omnibus, and then in rhetoric class, it'll be broken up again. So we're protecting that kind of thing. I also wanted to see, because at Veritas, when we have a discussion, a lot of times you're going to find things that people disagree on. So did that disagreement, without necessarily losing friendship, has that been something that you found advantageous, or that is a benefit to you?
That's something I would have found to be the most advantageous.
Okay.
Is being able to defend let me rewind a little bit. Being able to put the correct emphasis on language and words. I mean, words have, the old adage, the pen is mightier than the sword.
Yeah.
And there's countless old phrases about the power of the tongue. Your words are the most important and powerful thing you have, the way you communicate. And that's something that Veritas instilled in me very early on, is the importance of choosing your words carefully, because things said in haste tend to be communicated wrong.
Yeah.
And that's something that that discussion in Omnibus class translates directly into peer-to-peer work relationships.
Okay.
I mean, we're I can't speak to your job, Caleb, but where I'm at, we discuss things frequently. I'm in an open office. There's open cubicles. We're 3 or 4 meetings a day on various different topics, and it's a lot of discussion back and forth. Should we do this? How should we do this? Lots of different discussions. And
so you're working as a team to try to solve problems or deal with issues?
Exactly. And being able to formulate a thought and then defend that thought logically has just been a game changer.
Wow.
And there's been a stark contrast in the way that I've done that and the way that I see some other people do that at my career, and that's allowed me to move very far very quickly.
Okay.
I would say it looks like that discussion, and I do remember having a similar discussion in Omnibus about choosing your words carefully and thinking prior to speaking. If anybody from my old class hears this, they will probably laugh to themselves saying, why is Caleb Ploutz saying think about what you say before you speak? My time at Veritas was not something that I learned then, but it's something I look back on and take as experience.
Yeah.
I had a very sharp tongue, and the filter between my brain and my mouth was out of commission for quite some time.
Yeah.
But I really do look back now, and I remember that as I move forward now in life.
Yeah.
I look back and say, there were lessons there that I need to come back to. I need to circle back on them almost and,
Definitely.
That's really
reevaluate
encouraging.
them.
It's not to say that we mastered it when we were in Veritas, but it's definitely a lesson we learned.
Well,
Yes.
so here, I mean, the thing that's encouraging to me is that some of the seeds that were planted that maybe didn't come to fruition while you were in, high school have been beneficial. And, I think adult life, you get knocked down a lot. You get knocked down, and that pain causes you to say, how can I avoid getting hit by a 2x4 again? So it sounds like you guys are headed in the right direction there. Now, Clay, I want to go back to how we, not just Veritas, but I think our culture has changed in the way that we relate to thinking about college. Okay? So there's this thing that happened a while back called COVID. You might have heard of it.
It sounds familiar.
Okay. we try. Mr. Dennis calls it that which will not be mentioned because it was a real stressor. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, they came face to face with the fact that there are two things there are probably more than two things, but there are two things that happen in college typically. One is like a student lives on their own and they learn by living on their own. And there's experiential things, okay, that happen. And then there's training or learning. And I think that what happened during COVID and a lot of the cultural disruptions that have happened since then is it became clear that this part of it, the experiential part of it, was diminished. And the training part had probably been diminished for a while. Now, that's all fine and well if they ask you to write a check the size that the University of Southern Indiana would. Like, could you give me $268 for this semester? I actually have that in my account. But while the experience, for some people during COVID, like I was talking with parents here who have older children that are in college, and they were describing the college experience of a daughter, and they said, it was basically prison. She went to prison and paid for it. So you guys, in some senses, I think were a little bit ahead of your time, because I think that right now, what we've seen is the number of colleges that our parents are interested in sending their kids to is shrinking. And it's not just shrinking because there's a lot of cultural craziness going on. It's shrinking because at many colleges, there's less and less teaching going on. And, of course, and you guys will laugh at this, I once was in a meeting with the admissions departments of, it was a pretty small meeting, there were probably 20 or 30 people there, Harvard, Princeton, and the University of Virginia.
Wow.
Okay. And they talked to us about mainly how wonderful they were. And I've been to those places. There's some wonderful things about them. And then they had Q&A. And I asked, it was the Harvard guy, I think. And I said, hey, I'm a history major. Would there be what's the reason why finance majors and computer science majors, their tuition amount is the same as a history major, whereas their income after they graduate is radically different? And these guys need atom smashers, and these people need a pile of books and a warm room. And he said, whoa, we love every student equally. And I was like, the Tina Turner song, I don't know, I'm dating myself here. What's love got to do with it? Was like ringing in my ears, like, there's no way a history major should be subsidizing the computer science department. Those guys are going to make
They
it.
love the checks that all students
I
are writing.
know.
Yeah, that's what they love about every major is every major writes the same amount.
And I think for students, it's important to look at it almost like as if you were to go into the military, right? So say a student is at any school is considering joining the military, and they're looking at that saying that's a minimum of a 4-year commitment, and that'll be my whole life for those 4 years. I can't do anything else. I think you need to kind of look at colleges the same way, because there is an opportunity cost, right? If you're going to college for 4 years, yes, you have the summer and the opportunity to work a little bit, amongst your classes. But at the end of the day, you're still going to school and you're not building a career elsewhere.
Sure.
And
So
that
there's
opportunity cost for some students might be very small, because they're not sure what they want to do, and they might be getting a true dead-end job that isn't going anywhere, and they're just trying to save up money. But for other students, that might be the beginning of a lifelong career, where those 4 years, the first 4 years, is going to be the ground level foundation of what they're building. And that's the experience that I've had, where had I gotten a college education, it likely wouldn't have applied very much, and I would have started exactly where I did 5 years ago.
Okay.
And it wouldn't have gotten me anywhere. So that the opportunity cost for me, I didn't know it at the time.
There
ended
are
up being
4 years of a salary.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I
didn't know, Caleb. Do you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say just absolutely to everything Clay said of the, the opportunity cost. And yeah, I would, again, kind of backpedal here and just make it very clear that I do not sit on the anti-college hill.
Sure.
I am not here like college is wrong for everyone. College is absolutely a wonderful path to go down if you have been blessed with the means to go and you have a desire to go and you know what you want out of it.
Yeah.
Or even eventually at the end of it all.
The majority of students here at Veritas go on to college.
Yeah, which
that's still the truth. And, I don't know that every time it's a wise decision, but many times it turns out to be a wise decision. They hopefully are writing fewer larger checks because of scholarship. And then something else that we've added on, like all of my daughters will basically go 3 years or 3.5. They won't have to go 4 years because we have a more dual credit stuff in place.
Which I think that's a great opportunity, you know, but so, obviously I would say on that side of things, I don't want anybody listening to this to be like, oh, and these two guests absolutely think college is the worst thing ever. Like, absolutely not. I think there's a lot of value in a college education, and especially if you know what you want to get out of it. But I would also just encourage anyone who maybe doesn't know what they want to do right out of the gate. Man, it's kind of like you said, what you see is the value of the trades going up and the value of a degree going down. There is a little bit,
or at least relative to the cost of it, definitely.
Exactly, because really, especially I would say getting into a career, and kind of earlier when you were asking about what might have set us apart, the biggest thing I hear from people, and now managing, I understand what they mean by this. The biggest shocker to most management and folks you work with is that you show up on time.
Yeah.
Is the fact that you show, they're like, thanks.
The greatest ability is availability.
And they go, thank you so much for showing up today. I'm like, what do you mean? Thanks. This is my job. Like, of course I'm going to show up today. And they're like, you don't understand how hard it is to find someone to show up to the job, which I think, to that credit is a lot of things instilled in me here is being on time to your classes, being on time to events. And, and then beyond that, it's the sort of basic communication skills that have helped. And, if you can take those and run with them in the trades, take them and run with them in the trades. It's been profitable. I've been blessed by that choice to move into the career.
So I wanted to ask, let's rewind again, and let's say, Clay, you're engaged, Caleb, you're married. Don't know if you have a mortgage on a home or in the process of buying a home or still renting or whatever. But if you rewind and Caleb, let's say you keep on writing those checks, and Clay, you start writing those checks. Do you think would you have the opportunity to be doing the things that you're doing now, especially on like the relationship and then hopefully a house after that front?
Definitely not. I was able to jump in and start saving very quickly. And one thing I do want to note as well, too, part of the benefits of college is getting out and joining a new circle, right? If I could give any advice to somebody that's considering not going to college, it would be to move out and start your own life elsewhere,
And
outside of your parents'
Because Caleb is nodding as well. Why did both of you say that? What's so like that resonated with both of you? Why is it?
Because life doesn't become real until you're paying for every aspect of it.
And yeah, and in a simpler term, you don't appreciate what you had until you're washing your own socks. It really, I mean, that is the case. Is especially, I remember when I moved out of my parents' place into my apartment, there were 1,000,001 questions that I didn't even know existed until I lived on my own.
You didn't even know the questions to ask.
It all just hits you at once, yeah, and it really does give you that appreciation for growth.
And that comes back to what I was saying before about opportunity cost, right, too, is how can you make the most of those early years regardless of what you end up doing. And if you don't go to college and you stay at the parents' house and you're working a dead-end job, at some point you've got to start living your life. And personally, I feel the sooner you can move out and find a new circle, the sooner you can actually start living that life and finding your fulfillment and finding what your calling is.
So what are some of, when you look forward in life, and I know your lives are pretty full right now with marriage and job and everything, do you have goals, or do you think about where you're headed? What are you trying to accomplish in your career, or maybe even in the short run over the next 5 or 10 years?
Sure. I can take this one first. Professionally, I've wanted to reach a certain level, and I actually just accepted a position I'll be starting in September that is at that goal. It's basically on par with an outside sales rep. It's a territory development position. So
different company or same company?
Same company.
Same company. Okay.
So all that to say, I've kind of hit some of those goals as far as income level, and it's just up from there. So learning to be content has kind of been one of my goals, is to take what I've got, stay hungry for the future, but be content with where I'm at.
Okay.
And I've gotten a lot of peace from that.
Good. Caleb?
Yeah, career-wise, I'm thinking heading forward, I was just discussing this with my wife recently, is I was thinking about going to college, and here I am, 5 years post-graduation. Now, disclaimer, I did earn my associate's degree at HAC in early childhood ed, but then
we got to redo the podcast now, Clay.
But then I know, I'm
But
sorry.
you're not doing early childhood.
He's shunned. He went to college.
I know. That's why I didn't die on that hill. Yeah. No, I did get my degree in that, but no, I was just talking to her recently because with my job as an EMT, we were just discussing, I said, I love helping people, and I love being able to help people, and usually when I'm there, it's at one of the worst moments of their life. But the problem with that, especially with being pre-hospital medicine, is there's no follow-up. You don't know what happened. You can't still be there for them. It is 15, 20 minutes of your day, and then you're on to the next person who's having the worst, one of the worst days of their life. So I had talked to her, and I'm hoping to pursue maybe a degree in nursing as well, and moving into either a nurse practitioner and working in like a family clinic, something like that.
Okay. So is there a chance that the company that you're working for would help to pay for that, or is it?
It's possible, but really the company I'm working for right now is still somewhat young. So they've been very generous with me so far, and I've gotten a lot of experience with them, which is great because on a resume that allows me to move forward to maybe like LGH, who will fully pay for college.
Yes.
Also another option is that's
so I did kind of want to ask you, as you've gotten this life experience and you're several years out, how are you kind of navigating the waters of looking at college, looking at the price tag, considering how you're going to continue on life and pay for that and experience that? How are you kind of navigating that?
Yeah,
Well, listen, as a married person, I hope your experience of college is a little bit different because
it is. It is. Yeah, kind of in terms of navigation there, there is more to consider now, especially having been in a career path for so long, but I will also say I won't be abandoning that completely to pursue college. It also, the fact that
You're keeping the income coming in.
Exactly. Yeah, like the income will still be coming in, and my wife's income will still be coming in, and college is still on the table, but we both have spent our time post high school and our time married saving up money, and that is in anticipation of like a house, and getting, just slapping down a huge down payment and paying off that mortgage as fast as possible. It has allowed us our choices in pursuing careers, because my wife Bethany was the same way. She did not straight out of high school go to college. She straight out of high school didn't know what she wanted to do.
Okay.
And she worked with ministries for several years, and she worked she was working with a few different like missions companies, and then figured out she wanted to be a nurse, but her faithfulness in just working hard and trusting in God to open up the right doors for her allowed her to go through college debt free. It allowed me to go through my associates and then my EMT licensure, and whatever my next, educational steps are, it has allowed me to go through them debt free. And we were just having a discussion about this the other day it's because I was reading a John Grisham book about,
I love John Grisham.
I love John Grisham, but I was reading about 3 law students who were just suffocating under crippling debt, and they were, every so often in the book, it would, their loan sharks would reach out to them with how much they owed, and it's $250,000 for a law degree, and they're really in the job market, just really isn't there, and it's like, I was just talking to her about, man, I can't believe, I feel really blessed in that we both pursued our careers and then did education, that now we are walking where I would say fewer 20-some-year-olds have walked in a while, which is we don't owe debt on anything. I mean, we pay rent, but, we're saving up for a house. We're fine with that, but we're living a very happy life,
Well, and guys, I just want you to know how proud I am of you and how thankful I am that you thought through everything. And, I think that those people who are listening to this podcast can see that you all, just like other students here at Veritas, were prepared very well for that next step. And then you had the courage to follow what God was calling you to. And I'm just so glad that it's working out so well for you. So, guys, thanks for stopping by today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You've been listening to Cultivate, the podcast of Veritas Academy, a preschool through 12th grade classical Christian school in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. If you'd like to learn more about Veritas, visit veritasacademy.com to discover the truth, beauty, and goodness of classical Christian education.